Looks like we are live.
Wonderful. All right. Welcome to the Town of Dewey Beach monthly Town Commission meeting. Today is Friday, February 18th, 2022, and it is 4:00 p.m. This meeting is all virtual because of COVID. So I'd like to convene the Town Commissioner meeting. First, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Second. So first by Gary, second by Commissioner Gibbons. All right, roll call. We haven't done these in a while. If you don't mind, I'll just read through who's on the line, who I can see. I have Commissioner Gary Persinger, Commissioner Elizabeth Gibbons, Commissioner David Jasinski, Town Manager Bill Zolper, Chief of Police Sam Mackert, Town Solicitor Fred Townsend, Town Clerk Ashley Sander, people keep moving. Welcome our accounting clerk from the Town of Dewey Beach, Karen Mayer, for her first meeting. Accounting HR manager Sheena Hall, and we also have Dawn Hinks and Don Richard on the line, as well as Fred Townsend. Did I say Fred already?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. And Kate is listening. So that is everyone. Note for today's meeting, we do not have Commissioner Bauer, so there will be only 4 commissioners voting on various principles as we go through the agenda. That being said, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice, and for all. All right. Let's start with updates and announcements. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to welcome Karen Mayer to our team here at town. She was brought in to help bring everything in-house, to move away from having an outside agency doing some of our financials, and also a segregation of duties per the audit. Karen, welcome. Do you have anything you'd like to say to the commissioners?
I'm just very happy to be here, and I look forward to working with everybody.
Thanks, Karen. Mr. Mayor, if I could continue. So our the AdMats have been being renewed. Ashley's been doing a good job as of right now. We have $3,500 worth of renews, and she sent out another email. We expect to have more in the next coming weeks. And our signs along the center islands, even with the construction going on, we've had 12 signs purchased for a total of $6,000. In fact, at some point, I think we're going to need to say enough's enough. We still have some room on the south end of town, but really the north and while the construction is going on, the center islands in the middle of town are really getting full. So it's a success, right? But at some point, we're just going to have to draw the line. We're not there yet, but I want to give everybody a heads up on that. We are doing a grant with the Economic Development Administration, the EDA, for about $480,000. We are waiting on that right now. Ashley's been working very hard and with an outside source on that. I signed us up for the mosquito control program as we did last year. They may or may not spray, but we are signed up for the program. We are doing firehouse donations. We have a link. Kate did a great job setting a link up to the website, and an email went out to everybody. Thank you, Kate, and Chuck Snyder also emailed me and thanked us for that. Our internet cable has been cut again to the lifeguard station. We are working on getting that back installed. It's because they're moving a house behind the lifeguard station at this time. A 5G update. So we haven't had anybody come in and apply for any applications or go to our portal yet, but I have been talking to Verizon. They do want to come in and change out some of the equipment on some of the poles. Those poles are mainly along Route 1 at this time. They didn't feel that they really needed to apply and go through the portal, but after I spoke with Jim Dedes and our attorney, I went back to Verizon and said, yeah, you need to go through the process, fill out the applications, and go through our portal. So they said they would. We have done something with building permits. We've had a lot of people building in town without knowing. They say what our process is. Kate, if you could bring up what we've done there on the website when people go to look for building permits. And this was done by Dawn. Dawn's done a great job to try to educate our folks on building permits and what they should look for. So the first thing they see is this: do I need a permit in the town of Dewey Beach? And Dawn's done an outstanding job laying this out with the yes and no all the way down until you get to your permit. So again, great job by Dawn. Kate getting up on the website. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Trash ordinance we're going to look at tonight, and that's all I have, Mayor.
Great job, everyone. It's a lot going on as we expected. The next section of our agenda is committee reports. Commissioner Persinger, do you want to go first?
Sure. The audit committee has met. They have a recommendation on the new auditing for. I'm sorry, there's some background noise there. They have a recommendation on the new auditor. We'll talk about that later on in the meeting today.
Okay, great. Commissioner Gibbons.
The investment committee met on January 27th. Dominic provided us with a review of the portfolio, and there was discussion about possible changes in our current investment plan. For example, the short-term component currently has no allowance for equities. So they are talking about making some adjustment there. They're using the definition of long-term equities. It's already in the policy, plus adding value focus or income producing. There were some also adjustments planned in the long-term portfolio, and we are looking at adding real estate income trust as a new asset class. The changes were going to be pulled together between meetings and brought back to the next meeting for approval.
Wonderful. Thank you. Commissioner Jasinski.
There is really no significant update from an infrastructure perspective.
Okay. And from budget and finance, there's no significant updates either. So if it's okay, I'd like to move forward into approval of minutes. Should we do each one individually or approve all of them at the same time?
Well, if they're all going,
I guess individually. Okay.
But if you're going to have amendments to some, it's better for when I do the minutes to do them individually.
Then we'll do it individually. Okay.
Bill,
Yes,
Bill,
Commissioner.
Just one point. We skipped over, or maybe I forgot to mention when I had the opportunity, the Charter and Code and the Climate Change Committees.
Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, they have both met. Charter and Code is scheduled to meet again on Monday, this coming Monday at 6 p.m. And I think their initial focus is largely going to be on some of the, we'll call it low-hanging fruit that the town can point us to, things that need to be looked at in the code and need to be addressed. Climate change met recently also. I think they're off. They've kind of divided things up. We have a set of requirements or responsibilities for this committee included in the objectives for the committee. So they've kind of divided those up among themselves. We'll start working on those and they'll come back together and meet again in April. And then one other committee, the Comprehensive Development Committee, they also met either earlier this week, I guess it was. And they just basically reviewed all of the elements of our comprehensive development plan, just to kind of see where we are. And they're really the committee that's intended to kind of give us a push to keep us going in the right direction with respect to implementing the comprehensive plan. And they will come back together again in June, just before the next report is due to the state, so that they can review the draft report and make some comments at that time before it goes into the state, which is due by July 1.
That's wonderful. And Commissioner Persinger, I just want to let you know, we also had a Association of Coastal Town meeting in the last 2 weeks. And one of the things that's come up is that this is going to be a priority and the towns are going to pull together. So as those resources come in or meetings come up, I'm going to keep you in the loop so that we can integrate that into what you're doing with that, the climate change. But thank you. Somebody I think has the meeting right now on it's a feed that's coming back. So if you have that, if you don't mind going on mute. And with that, I'd like to again go back to the approval of the minutes. May I get a motion for the approval of minutes of January 21st, 2022 monthly town commissioners meeting minutes?
So moved.
Uh,
I have a motion. Yes, Gary.
I had some changes to that set of minutes, which I passed on to Ashley. I can go through this if you like, very quickly.
Yes.
They relate, first of all, to paragraph 1, where we talked about the infrastructure funds and setting aside or reserving, I guess, $478,000. In the minutes, I was inserting the word "to" between Commissioner Jazinski and the word "approve." And then I think rather than $60,000, we were setting aside $60,800 for professional services fees. And then in the next line down, 125 should be $125,000. Then in paragraph 3, in the second line, instead of pass the budget program, I think it should say pass the proposed salary changes. And then one other change in paragraph 7, which is also very minor. Motion by Commissioner Persinger, and then add the word "to" authorize the town manager. And Ashley has all of those, so unless there's an objection, she can make those easily.
Could you review number 7 real quick again? Because the dog was barking.
Sure. It's just very simple. Motion by Commissioner Persinger, and then insert the word "to" authorize the town manager.
Okay.
That's it.
I accept those changes to my motion.
With no other comments, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Persinger. Those minutes have been approved.
When you vote.
Thank you. Can I have a vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Seeing all ayes, that goes unanimous. Second set of minutes, January 21st, 2022 executive session meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have any discussion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gibbings. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those minutes also go approved unanimously. And the third and final January 21st, 2022 Special Town Commissioners Workshop meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve? Anyone?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Persinger. And do I have any discussion or a second?
I will second.
Thank you to Commissioner Gibbings, and vote to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, that also passes unanimously. The next section of our agenda is to have open for public comment. Kate, is there anyone that's on the line for public comment?
Yes, you have Carol Everhart from Chamber of Commerce, and also a person named Jim, no last name.
Okay, bring whichever one came in first.
All right. Get Carol in first here.
Creamer and sugar and all that stuff, and a whole bunch of stuff. So I was happy. I'd be on there when they saw the work.
Ms. Everhart, welcome to the meeting. Carol, you're on mute. We can't see you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to lend the chamber's support to the application for the Starboard for the temporary expansion of the premise on the weekend of March 18 through 20.
Well, thank you very much. Duly noted.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful weekend, Carol.
Thank you.
All right, Kate.
Okay, Jim has left the waiting room, but Miriam Tabrizi is there, so I can let her in next.
Okay. Mr. Breezy. Oh, you're connecting to audio. Miriam Tabrizi, welcome to the meeting.
Hi, am I on? You can hear me okay?
I can hear you okay.
Okay, great. So good
You just,
afternoon, Mayor Stevens, Dewey Commissioners, Town Managers. So I'm Mary Ann Tabrizi, 16 Dagsworthy Avenue in Dewey, and a member of Coastal Stewards Delaware. I just wanted to make a quick comment to alert you to some discussions if you don't know about Rehoboth Beach and their changes to their wireless ordinance. CTC is also their consultant. So as our neighbors to the north, we have many things in common with them. They had a commissioner meeting on February 7th, and they had been named in a couple recent Cape Gazette articles, which I'll forward to you, but just a couple highlights. They had some really good discussion about the use of best available technology. And I know we've had that discussion. And then also in terms of zoning and requirements for design and equipment in 5 different zones they've used: residential, commercial, central corridor, boardwalk, and boardwalk adjacent. So I just encourage the Dewey commissioners in Dewey to stay engaged and to continue to follow the discussions that Rehoboth is having. I think we can learn a lot from them and vice versa as we work to implement this 5G technology in our coastal towns and try to, preserve the beauty and the history of our towns. So just encourage you to keep tuned what's going on in Rehoboth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Breezy. Have a wonderful weekend. Kate, is there anyone else in the waiting room?
Not at this time.
All right. Okay, I'd like to move forward off of public comment and open the public hearing. The first item on the agenda is public hearing for an application submitted by Steve Montgomery for the Starbird located at 2009 Highway 1 Dewey Beach, Delaware, for temporary expansion of premise for the event Starbird opening weekend, March 18th through the 20th, 2022. Is there anyone online for conversation for the public hearing? Kate?
No, there is not.
So by protocol, since we have nobody in the waiting when we're open for public hearing, should we close public hearing and move forward in the agenda? Fred?
Mayor, so these are, I think these 3 or 4 applications could be, well, certainly the first 3 applications could be handled at the same time. It would be typical for Mr. Montgomery or somebody else to present these applications to us. However, they are pretty routine. We've heard them before. Is staff comfortable doing that? Somebody from staff?
Bill Zolper, Town Manager, please.
Yeah, thank you. The chief and I both reviewed these, and also with Todd Fritchman, especially for the running of the bull. And all 3 of us have thought they met the requirements. They do have the insurance that we asked for these events. And so the chief and I and Captain Fritchman all approved.
Okay, so with that, can we close the public hearing?
Well, with respect to these 3 items, if we just double check, it sounds like there's no one here who wishes to speak. Then we would invite the commissioners to ask questions if they had any of our staff. And that may or may not be.
Fred,
yes, sir.
Steve Montgomery is coming in.
Okay, got it.
I was hoping to close public comments before we got here, but that didn't happen. Mr. Montgomery, good. We're public hearing for public comments, and we just announced the opening weekend, March 18th to 20th, 22nd. Do you have anything that you'd like to comment on that or the other 2 events that you have up there?
I don't want to waste anybody's time unless they have any questions for me. It's the same 3 events, starting with that first one you mentioned. We've done every normal year outside of COVID for the last 15 years.
Then I'll look to the commissioners. Do any of the commissioners have specific questions for Mr. Montgomery while he's on the phone? No? Anyone from town? No? Mr. Montgomery, I think you're good. No questions for you.
I appreciate it. You got me out of driving back. I got my wife driving back from DC for us now. So
I thought maybe you got a new European car.
Thank you. Take care.
See ya. All right. With those comments, I'd like to close the public hearing and move into our agenda item, which is number one. Yep. Go ahead, Fred.
Well, we've got a fourth matter though, right? Involving the amendment to the text version of the code.
Correct. But if there's no one in the public to make public comment, why would we keep the public portion open?
Well, yeah, that's fine. You're right. That's fine.
Okay.
So you can close the public hearing. Very good.
Okay. So moving on to item number one from the public hearing, after closing public hearing, number one of the agenda. And unless there's any objections, I'd like to do A, B, and C together since all three are part of the Starboard. And I'll read those into the record. A, discuss and possibly vote to approve the application submitted by Steve Montgomery for the Starboard located at 28009 Highway 1, Dewey Beach, Delaware, for temporary expansion of premise for the event Starboard opening weekend, March 18th, 20th, 2022. That's for A. B, 25th anniversary running the bull, June 25th, 2022. And C, Dewey Goes Pink, October 8th, 2022. So from a commissioner perspective, any comments before I ask for a vote? Can I have a motion to approve those events for temporary expansion?
Motion to approve all three.
That's a motion, and I have a second from Commissioner Persinger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. Number two on the agenda, discuss and possibly vote to approve an ordinance to amend Chapter 185 zoning regarding requirements and provide consistency regarding residential parking requirements between what is in Table 2 and what is in the text version of the code. All right, can I have some conversation on this? Who wants to lead? Fred, or is this Fred or Bill that brought this?
Well, I can lead off by just indicating that it became apparent to the town some time ago that there was a disparity between the parking requirements for off-street parking requirements for residential structures between the text and the table. My guess is that the table was amended more recently, but it was still years ago. It was before anyone's memory, I think. So it was necessary to bring the text in line with the table. I think the table is somewhat less restrictive than the text language was. And I think the Planning Commission has made a recommendation that we adopt or that we make harmonious the text with the table, which is to enforce the less stringent standard as the town has been doing for quite some time.
And specifically, this is to look at item number one, in which the requirement of changing the first 3 bedrooms, first 4 bedrooms, plus some additional 1 space for additional 2 bedrooms. Is that the only change, Fred, that I'm seeing?
I think that's right, although I lost your audio there for a second.
There's only the change to our ordinance is going from the first 3 to 4 bedrooms, and going and 1 additional space for every additional 2 bedrooms.
That's right.
That's the only change that we have to the ordinance.
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
And that's a continuation of our policy that's been established for some time.
Great. So do I have a motion so that we can discuss this? A motion to approve?
Yeah, motion to accept the proposed zoning amendment to Chapter 185.
Okay. And any discussion?
I will second the motion to approve it
Right,
without discussion.
hold on. Commissioner Persinger.
This is just very quickly. When we post ordinances that we approve, I would ask that we post them, including the highlighted additions and the language that has been stricken. I think recently we've been posting them without those. And if you read the ordinance, it often talks about language that has been added or stricken. And I think for completeness and accuracy, I think that we should post them that way with those changes clearly highlighted.
Agreed.
I have a question on that.
Commissioner Gibbings, did you second? Okay.
Yes, I did second, but we had
Okay.
discussion, so we're good. I think Jim
All
had
right.
something to say.
Mr. Dedes, you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to check with Ashley on that. Will that cause any problems when we ask for codification on the ordinances? Because we submit the ordinances with strikes.
I can
Would
send
that
it,
cause a problem?
I can send it to the codifier as a clean version, but put the amended stricken version on our website.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Sure.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, all in favor of approving just to approve the vote on the ordinance to amend chapter 185 zoning requirements, provide consistency regarding residential parking requirements between what is table 2, what is in the text version. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. Even got the dog to vote yes. All right. Number 3, discuss and possibly vote to approve a recommendation for the town manager to have paving on Dagsworthy Avenue Bayside completed. Mr. Town Manager, can you give us some background on this?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So back in May of last year, and I attended the first art festival back on Dagsworthy Street done by Dewey Business Partnership. We had some issues with some of the right side of Dagsworthy Street on the bay side. That would be the north side of Dagsworthy Street. Runs from the liquor store down to our dumpsters down at Sunset Park. The gravel was uneven. When cars go to turn in there, that knocks the millings and gravel up. I just happened to bump into Senator Lopez when I was down there back in May and mentioned that to him. And a couple months later, he said, we were able to free up $50,000 from the state to do some paving on that road to get the shoulder. It's not actually the road, but the shoulder where we have the parking area between Dagsworthy to the actual edge of the road, the north side there. If Kate could bring up those photos as I go through this. So I went ahead and worked with the state, found out what the requirements were. It's basically 3 estimates. I got the 3 estimates because of COVID and weather. It's taken a long time to get the 3 estimates. The 3 estimates were posted. Initially, I looked at just asphalt, and then I went to pervious asphalt. Of course, it costs a little more. You see the 3 estimates there in front of you. Custom paving came back with basically the same standards as the other pavers. Pervious asphalt that will help the water go through and filter out the water as it goes through. And they were, within our budget of $46,000. And, Senator Lopez was able to get us $50,000. The actual asphalt plant won't start running until about March. And because it's a pervious mix, it has to be done separately. And that's why it costs more to do it. So looking at that, it's about 1,100 feet down the street, and then anywhere between 30 and 25 feet of shoulder that we're going to be paving. It will have a swale in it where the paving meets the road. It'll have a swale that will run to the storm drain. There are 2 storm drains on the street. The swale will run to the one that's closest to the bay, and then the one that's closest to the package store. Of course, that area of the paving will drain to there. Just happened yesterday, bumped into Jim Tyler, had him out there, had him look at it, but some time ago, not that one, Kate, actually, it's the Dagsworthy Avenue Bayside Paving Project. If it's in there. If not, this is something different that I wanted to bring up later. But anyway, I talked to Jim about this some time ago, and he basically had told me that this would be something that infrastructure would not be involved in, that it would be a project that I would go on since I had also had the money. So it's before the commissioners today. I asked for you to support this so we can get this done. We will have this done by April 15th if the weather holds, and then by the first festival, which will be May 7th, the art festival, we'll have that pervious pavement down on the asphalt down on the north side of Dagsworthy Street Bayside.
So just a few comments before we go into this. So did you go back to WB Paving to see if they had a pervious option?
They never got back to me.
Okay. Is there a recommendation before we go for discussion on pervious versus conventional? Bill?
Discussion on Pervious versus, yeah, there's a cost difference of anywhere between 11 and 15 or $16,000, but the Pervious is the way to go, especially with, our folks on the Climate Control Committee and talking to infrastructure.
I'd like to open up to the commissioners for discussion.
So, Bill, so basically this is fully a state grant, right? As long as we stay under the 46K?
As long as we stay under 50 that we actually receive from the state.
Okay. Well, from my perspective, we ask our residents to do Pervious other than the actual roadways. So I think that we definitely should go Pervious. We should kind of, eat our own dog food, so to speak. And it looks like you've got a $46,000 quote for Pervious option. So is that your recommendation?
Yeah, that's my recommendation. And then the only thing we may use some extra funding for, and it is good with the state, is to stripe. So right now there's no striping on that, so that we would actually add the striping for parking. We could remove those ugly posts that we have there to designate the parking spots.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Commissioner Gibbings.
And I'm assuming that custom paving and peninsula paving come equally recommended, that we're only using price comparison is the only one that we need to do, that they both will provide quality service.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Persinger.
Yeah, just a question. I agree. Pervious paving is the way to go, the only way to go here. Does pervious paving require any particular type of maintenance that's not required for standard paving?
Yes, it does. Just like the pavement out on Route 1, those spots that are pervious, it's supposed to be vacuumed as much as possible. We do have a goat that was a goat vacuum cleaner that was donated to us by the Dewey Beach Partnership. That is something that we're going to have to use on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have no comments, but or questions. I do believe, and I'm glad you brought that up, Gary, that the pervious pavers and pervious asphalt with the sand will get trapped from time to time, and it will become as like conventional if it's not taken care of.
Yeah.
So as long as we have the timing that we're going to have it done. Commissioner Jasinski.
I was just going to move to motion that we approve the spending for the $46,000 custom paving proposal with potential additional striping up to the $50,000 grant amount.
Do I have any conversation or a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Persinger. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes unanimously. Good job on that, Bill. On to number 4, discuss possibly vote to approve a proposal from ADT for a town security system in the amount of $29,129.61, utilizing ARPA funds for the purchase. Bill, can you give the commissioners a little background on this?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So originally, ARPA funds were not approved for this type of use, and I briefed you that some months ago. But the federal government made some changes in those ARPA fund requirements, and we were able to get this approved by the attorneys that we've actually hired to review these requests. So basically what this will do is replace a couple different antennas around town. When the lighthouse actually went away down there on Dickinson Street, we lost some of our ability to have relay with some of the cameras around town. This will actually replace that antenna there and replace one other antenna that will enable us to see certain areas that sometimes we have some challenges with during the summer throughout the town. It will also upgrade some of our cameras. This will have nothing to do, and it was a good question by Commissioner Jasinski about our system here inside the town hall. This will have nothing to do actually with that system. We're not replacing anything on that system, the ADT camera system that we have there. This is for the cameras and the antennas that are throughout the town to be able to update those. So we're getting the best picture that we can use for any type of situation it handles in town, and also that it could be used in court at a later date.
Commissioners, do I have any? Let's open it up for discussion. Commissioner Gibbings.
In looking through proposal, I just had one question, and it doesn't have anything to do with the ADT technology. It has to do with it costing $2,419 to stay overnight here.
Good point.
Expenses for overnight.
I'll put them up in my house.
Yeah, so ADT does all our work on all our cameras. I don't know how many folks are bringing in. That's a good question. I don't know if the chief is on or whether Lieutenant Hocker's on, but that's what we're being charged for like their per diem, their travel down here and to stay in the hotel. I have seen them out working, replacing the cameras and some of the poles that had knocked down. There's usually 3 of them that come down and stay. That is a good question, and I'd have to get back to you to on that to answer you why it is 2015.
Mr. Mayor, typically the travel expense is estimated and not fixed, and you just pay the actual expenses. Is that how ADT does it, or is the travel expense a fixed expense?
You know, I don't know. I was hoping that the chief would be able to answer those questions, but I see the chief's actually fallen off the call.
Yeah, Chief is having some audio problems, Bill, so he's trying to get back on.
Okay. I can't answer that at this time. I know we do need the cameras. I know we do need the antennas. I can't answer the 2419 at this time. I see the chief trying to get back on. If he can answer that, I'd appreciate it.
What?
You know, when I think about when we had the snow emergency and some of the local hotels gave us gifted us some rooms, is it possible that this is something that we can provide reimbursement for up to 2419 if it is so moved that we move in that direction?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable trying to answer that question because I don't have an answer for it, and I'll have to get that. I mean,
Chief,
the money's been approved to use, but I would feel better that I get Lieutenant Hocker or the chief to answer those types of questions before we vote on it.
All right, Chief Macker, you can't hear us?
would you like me to call him on speakerphone? And
That would be wonderful.
Okay, just a moment. Okay, try now and see if you can hear okay this way.
Okay.
Can you guys hear?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And Chief, can you hear okay?
I can hear okay, yes.
So Chief, the question is on the estimate, when it comes to expenses for overnight, it's at $2,419.35. The question from the commissioners is, what does that expense entail? And how many nights? I wasn't able to answer that question.
What are we talking about? I'm sorry, I'm having some issues. I can see you guys, but I can't hear.
It's on the ADT proposal for the antennas and the cameras here in town, with the total being $29,129.61. Part of that is $2,419.35 for expenses for overnight.
Correct. That's when they send the crew down. They're going to have to spend the night down and install the equipment. And I believe that they quoted us a price on them coming down and doing the work. They're going to have to stay in town. They're not able to get it done in one day. They're coming from, I believe it's Columbia, Maryland. They're coming from over there. And instead of making 2 trips back and forth each day, I believe they put in to stay overnight is what that quote was in there for.
Commissioner Gibbings.
So, Chief, it's a team of about 3, you think?
I'm sorry, it was what?
Is a team of 3 technicians?
Yeah, it'll be an installer, 2 installers, and the supervisor, which will be working on the project also, I believe.
Okay, I was just questioning, I'm the one that caused this problem. I was just questioning why it cost them $2,419 to stay overnight in Dewey Beach.
Yes, and I'm, we can call them back if there's a question on that and see if there's something that we could do to lower that price, but that was in the quote, what they quoted. And I believe, what they told us was, they couldn't get the project completed in one day. They would have to be staying down here. So, I can definitely call the vendor back and inquire about that.
Yeah, I have no
Yeah,
issue with them staying overnight. I just want to know where they're paying that much money to stay.
I have a way I think we can get around this, guys, and just kind of be able to get this done. And that's if I were to motion to approve this with the provision that all travel expenses are billed as actual expenses, with the cap being the amount in the quote.
I like that.
Is that good? All right. Any other discussion? So do I have a second on that motion?
Can I like
Second.
that be a second?
Yes. All right. Let's vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously.
Are you good with Chief now? If we
Yeah, I'm
disconnect?
going to try and get in on it.
Okay. Item number 5, discuss and possibly vote to nominate Dave Davies as the Town of Dewey Beach Volunteer of the Year. I'll start with my own comments, having been part of the various committees for several years now. Mr. Davies always seems to step up to the plate and always does a great job, whether that be budget and finance, whether it be part of audit, and now also part of climate change, I believe. Right, Gary? He's the latest.
chair, yeah.
He is the chair of the latest. So I'd like to open that up for discussion among the commissioners, or if there's anyone else that you'd like to propose. So I'll look at Gary.
Yeah, I've worked with Dave on the Budget and Finance Committee. And he's also chair of the Comprehensive Development Committee. And now he stepped up and volunteered to be chair of the Climate Change Committee. I think that's going to be a really important committee. He seems very committed to that effort, as do the members of the committee, certainly. So I certainly support this nomination.
Wonderful. Commissioner Gibbings or Commissioner Jasinski?
No additional comments.
No comments.
And Gary, can I have a motion then?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Persinger, second by
I'll second.
Commissioner Gibbings. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, it's that unanimous approval of Dave Davies as the Town of Dewey Beach Volunteer of the Year. That's a great thing to happen for him. Number 6, discuss and possibly vote to approve the recommendation from the Audit Committee to hire Cohn Resnick as the Town Auditor. We have Julie Johnson, the Audit Committee Chair on the line, as well as Gary Persinger. Gary, would you like yourself or Julie to start off?
Julie is available since she's the chair. I'd like her to speak.
Okay. Ms. Johnson.
Yes, so the committee met a couple weeks ago, and Cohn Resnick was fortunately, in a lot of ways, the only proposal we received in response to our RFP. We've been very happy, and I know the town employees have been very happy with Cohn Resnick the last 3 years. And you all will notice, if you noticed in the budget, or not in the budget, but in their proposal, it's quite a bit higher than their previous fees. They admitted that they didn't realize the extent that what they were getting into and underbid it initially. But given the fact that everyone has been so happy with Cohn Resnick, the town employees, the audit committee, all around, we are in vast favor of promoting Cohn Resnick as continuing. And you'll also note that when we put out the RFP, we put it as a 3-year contract with 2 one-year extensions versus just a 1-year contract with 2 one-year extensions, hoping to promote some continuity. It's taken 3 years essentially for Cohn Resnick to feel comfortable with our processes and to really feel like they know the town of Dewey Beach and how things are done here. So I think this is a good result, and the committee is very happy to promote them to continue.
Quick
Thank you, Ms.
question.
Johnson.
Sure.
Yes, David.
How does this proposal's fees compare to what we were paying previously with them? Did it go up? Because I thought I saw something in the budget that something was higher. So I just want to kind of understand what's going on.
It definitely went up. Like I said, they had not realized, Cohn Resnick, when I was talking to Dan Kenny, who's the managing partner on this account, had indicated they did not know how many man hours they were really going to need to put in to us, being that we're a small town. So I think some of it is, I don't want to, trying to be polite, but I think some of it is kind of recouping the losses that they had from the last 3 years. So that is why the fee has definitely gone up. I can't remember. Bill, do you recall the last Mayor Stevens? Do you recall the contract from last year, what the fee was? I can't.
I have it up. It looks like it was 24,500 and it was 21,000 before that.
So now we're looking at 31,990.
Yeah, the current, 22,000, 24,500, 21 were the last 3 years.
Okay.
Well, so my only question is, do you think the proposal is competitive and fair on the pricing?
I do. Based on what we saw 3 years ago. I mean, I think this is a rational, if I calibrated out or projected out those numbers from some of the past proposals we got back 3 years ago, I do think it's a fair and reasonable number.
Okay.
Gary?
And I would just note also, I know that one of the audit committee members made the point that after taking a look at the hourly rates, that they were very, very reasonable.
Right.
So I think that's an additional point.
The bid that they put forth, I have a question, Julie, Ms. Johnson. The bid is this just for one audit, or is this a multiple year RFP?
So it's a multiple year RFP. It's so it's 3 years to start with 2 1-year extensions. If you look, it goes from 31,990 in 2022 to 32,600 in 2023 and 33,300 in 2024. And then if we approve the extensions, it's 34,000 in 2025 and 34,700 in 2026.
Great. Any other comments on this, Commissioner Givings? No? I think they've done an incredible job. They've stepped in, always have accessible and great to work with. So that's how I look at Cohn Resnick. So do I have a motion to approve Cohn Resnick as our town auditor? So moved by Commissioner Jasinski, second.
Second.
By Commissioner Persinger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes unanimously.
I will let Dan Kinney know that they have officially won the project.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all.
Number 7, discuss and possibly vote to approve Alex Hannah as chair of the marketing committee. I'm gonna basically make a few comments on this. I've known Alex Hannah for several years. He is a wonderful asset to the town. Does a great job on the marketing committee. He has asked, because of other complications or other situations in his life that have recently come up, that he not be named chair, but act as acting as the second or as the vice chair and continue to run the meetings. So this is a new development. So given that, I don't believe we need to vote, because he can step into that process as an acting chair until a new chair is found. And our liaison, Paul Bauer, the liaison to that committee, will address that need. Okay. So we'll move from number 7. Any other conversations on that, or no? Okay. All right. Number 8, review and discuss House Bill 290 related to expansion of premise for restaurants. Discuss the next step the town would like to make regarding this topic. Please note that this is not a vote. This is a discussion, because there is difference of opinions, I would say, in town as to what the Bill 290 really means and what it really does mean to town of Dewey Beach. So I'll turn this over to Fred Townsend to give us some of the background and the issue that we need to discuss.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll just remind myself that there may be some others who've expressed some interest in speaking on this topic. And I don't know if anyone's in the waiting room, but at some point you may want to remember to ask for comments. I know we did receive at least one writing that I'm aware of.
And I'll read that in after you go through the overview.
So House Bill 290, as I understand it, was signed by the governor very recently, so it's become law. And what House Bill 290 does is it amends the code that relates to or concerns the sale of alcoholic liquors and beverages of all types. What this particular amendment is doing is taking into consideration the pandemic and concerns about social distancing to grant some flexibility to the commissioner of the Alcohol Beverage and Control Commission to allow for expansions and to not consider expansions into the outside areas to be substantial changes to their existing permits. Any permit that's issued for the sale of alcoholic beverages for establishments requires the commissioner to determine that the local zoning authority has granted approval. So I highlight that because this bill does not relate to zoning per se. The state does not regulate the zoning of property, the use of property in the same way that municipalities do, such as Dewey Beach. So whatever it is that the Abcc commissioner is considering authorizing, it is all premised on whether the local authorities have indicated that it's zoning compliant. So if you recall, when the expansion, the original legislation allowing for expansions was made effective, it was done so at a point in time when establishments were restricted in what percentage of their occupancy they were permitted to serve at any given time. That percentage, I think, has changed with the amendments to the governor's state of emergency, but at one time it might have been 50%. So the principle here is that businesses are going to suffer, establishments are going to suffer in the sale of alcoholic beverages, restaurants and the like, if they can only serve half of their typical clientele, and to allow them to expand would allow them to replace that revenue. Those social distancing requirements, I know they've been relaxed. They may no longer be existent. I'm not sure, but the public health emergency is scheduled to declared by the governor, is scheduled to terminate or expire at the end of March. We last essentially voted as a council to suspend enforcement of our zoning restrictions that apply to restaurants, both selling alcoholic beverages and not selling alcoholic beverages, so long as these expansions are approved by us, and so long as, and for such a time as the emergency, public health emergency remains effective. So as we're led to believe that as I said, the effectiveness of the public health emergency is going to expire at the end of next month. So it's going to require some action on our part if we wish to extend this period where these expansions are permitted to a period any longer than the end of March. Otherwise, as I said, those approvals are set to expire. Just to highlight the difference between the jurisdictions of Dewey Beach regarding restaurants and the effectiveness of this legislation is authorizing the sale of off-premise consumption of alcohol by restaurants, which was, not permitted previously. So this legislation is involved. It involves the town, but only it touches on our existing authority. It is not an amendment to the code that governs the town's jurisdiction with respect to zoning. Many of these establishments that have been granted expansions are permitted by conditional use, and any permanent change to that conditional use permit to allow for a change in their footprint, to allow for an expansion of the number of people that they could serve, or the number of bar stools, for instance, or the length of the bar, the increased patron area would require would trigger a zoning amendment to the conditional use permit if it's deemed to be substantial. So that would be done on a case-by-case basis. So at the present time, the council has certainly been hearing from the public, or certainly hearing from the owners of these establishments, that they would like these current accommodations to remain in place. And I think that's the subject that council will be taking up at its next meeting.
And town solicitor, could you also comment on what that means to a specific establishment in terms of becoming current on all of its potentially grandfathered clauses?
Yeah, so without doing any research on each of the establishments that have been granted an expansion, in theory anyway, one or more of them may be permitted to operate as a legal non-conforming establishment with the condition that they not substantially change their current or their then current operation. What that means is that if a legal non-conforming business, an establishment that predates the creation of the town and its zoning, it doesn't have a conditional use permit, and if it wishes to make a significant change, then that significant change would trigger a duty on its part to bring itself into compliance with all of our zoning, and that may be burdensome.
Okay. Any of the commissioners have any comments or questions for Mr. Townsend before I read in? You go ahead, Commissioner Jasinski. You're on mute. You're on mute, David.
The dog was barking, so I had it on mute before.
Okay.
Mr. Townsend, have you kind of decided on a direction that you think we need to do to extend this, moratorium this, whatever the case may be, or are you still kind of getting your thoughts together on the legal mechanism that you're going to recommend?
Yeah, the legal mechanism, I'm not prepared to present the details of today.
Okay.
If you recall, what we did previously was a simple motion to direct the town manager to field these applications and to grant them in the judgment of the town manager. So that if it is the desire of the council to continue this practice, depending on how long the council wishes to do it, I think we need to consider a more formal mechanism for doing so.
Commissioner Persinger.
Yeah, what you just touched on was something I was going to ask about. It was, it's my understanding that those businesses that have expanded under this emergency authorization have done so in working just with the town. So we have not had individual applications that we've had to review and make decisions on. And that's fine. As I read the law, and Mr. Townsend can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to me that if any business comes to us with an application for expanding outdoor seating for service of food and alcohol, and it meets all of the requirements that are stated in paragraph F2, I believe it is, which basically says doesn't intrude upon the state right of way, maintains current access, maintains proper access to the property for emergency services, complies with the American Disabilities Act, adheres to all local noise ordinances, and allows for proper control of the distribution of alcoholic beverages. As I read this, we're basically required to approve that. They will have met the conditions that are stated in the law here, and that we really don't have much opportunity to deny them. I'm not saying we necessarily would or have an interest in denying that, but it seems to me that we would necessarily have to. I guess that being the case, I would hope that we would at least be able to say that all these expanded outdoor seating areas would be consistent with the rules that other existing outdoor seating areas already follow. And I'm hoping that we don't have anything in our current code that's in conflict with what's in the state code.
Mr. Townsend.
I'm not sure that that I'm reaching the same conclusion from reading this that Mr. Persinger is. I think whatever approvals the ABCC commissioner grants with regard to expansions are all contingent upon a determination or a representation made that the establishment is zoning compliant. So the footprint of a building is a zoning issue. And my view of it is that this authorizes the commissioner to grant expansions only in such instances where there's a determination made that the expansion is zoning compliant. So I think at the present time, we've suspended our enforcement of our conditional use permits, which limit operations to or limit patron areas to those that are approved.
How would you interpret paragraph H?
H of which subsection?
This is F, F2. I'm sorry, wait a minute. Let's see.
Commissioner Persinger, can you direct us to the exact?
It's paragraph H. This is on page 4 of 6 on the document that I'm looking at. I can't find a major paragraph reference here. It's toward the end. It's in the area of the amendment here with it's highlighted.
I see it.
Okay.
Any plan submitted to the appropriate political subdivision and the commissioner pursuant to 524F that meets all the requirements of 524F2 should not be denied approval absent exceptional circumstances. That's very unusual language, saying it should not be denied. And again, this section does not regulate. This section is regarding the jurisdiction of the ABCC commissioner. I think you've identified language that I need to pay some more attention to, but I'm not convinced by that language that we're restricted in the enforcement of our zoning ordinance.
Commissioner Gibbings, do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
I was trying to reference what 524 is, because that's not the one we're in now. Is that one that's referred to midway through? Because I just saw it, the notice of application, which would be on page 2 of 6,
right.
Midway down. Basically, I'm asking what 524 refers to.
It does. It refers to, I'm sorry, it's notice of application is the name of section 524. The reference is to 524F. 524F is instructing the commissioner to conclude that an outdoor expansion of its eating area shall not be considered a significant change. So all these establishments are required in order to get an ABCC permit to indicate what their patron areas are, what the length of their bars are, how many stools they're permitted to have, how many tables of 2, tables of 4. And, it's a highly regulated industry. And if the permittee or the establishment wants to make a change to the layout of their restaurant, and that change is determined to be substantial or significant, then that triggers a duty to go through this approval process over again, and that's an onerous process. what this law is saying is that an expansion for outdoor seating, which was approved by the commissioner, does not trigger that additional process, that reapproval. So that's what that language relates to.
Okay.
And it's a circular thing that Commissioner Persinger's comments, that it takes you back to this 524F2, which starts by saying a plan approved by the appropriate political subdivision that does all the following. So it's a circular argument that we're forbidden from denying an application that meets all these criteria if we have to approve the application to start with.
So now this was a discussion in hopes that we come to some conclusion as to next steps and possibly vote if need be at the next meeting. There's two pieces of information I'd like to just read into the record. First of all, I did receive a letter, and I won't read verbatim, but we did receive a letter from Glenn Mendelis, who's the attorney for the Starboard, and his interpretation of House Bill 290, and comes to the conclusion of, and I'll read this one paragraph. One solution would be a moratorium for a reasonable period of time on the enforcement of the zoning code as it relates to a temporary outdoor expansion approved during the governor's state of emergency. Implementing such a moratorium would afford the town council and its staff time to thoughtfully consider the issue in view of Dewey Beach's comprehensive plan and the town's goals and objectives. The letter from Mr. Mendelis is obviously moving the restaurants to a point of obviously liking to keep the outdoor area open and to continue. I also got across my desk this morning, and this is more of from a personal standpoint, that there is a new subvariant of Omicron on the rise, a BA2 subvariant, and it points to even higher signs of severity. And as a town, I would hate to, not hate, a town to make a decision to have these outdoor seating go away and then find ourselves right back into another state of emergency. I'm concerned with the continuity. I think as an individual, I like being outside, I like being safe. And I'm concerned with all of the variants coming at us. Yes, Commissioner Gibbons.
And I think that outdoor dining is one of the positive things that came out of the pandemic. That's what I was hearing from people in the town all last summer. Please don't make it go away. We want it to stay. So it sounds like we need to think of, Fred, does something have to be done before March 30th so they don't go away?
Well, something would have to be done. Currently, the permits that have been granted through the town manager's office are all set to expire at the end of March.
Okay.
So Mr. Townsend, the only other question I have for you is, it's clear we could do something in March. Is there anything that's going to force us to send this to planning and zoning, or will we be able to act as a town council?
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends on what we're doing. If we're going to change the code in some way, in some kind of a comprehensive way, then that's going to trigger all the responsibilities that go with any zoning change, which again is dual public hearings and 15.
Yes, but could the council approve a moratorium to extend the conditional, the use that is currently happening until a date in the future? Do we have that power?
All right. Well, I would rather not answer that question now, but I'm certainly aware of that, of the interest in that topic, and I will advise you prior to your next month's meeting about the mechanics of doing that if council is of the opinion that that's a step that needs to be taken. Mr.
Zolper, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to say that we did send out a letter that was drafted by Jim Dedes, myself, and by Mr. Townsend to the 10 establishments that did have conditional use permits saying as of the, or expansions as of the end of March, that unless something's done, they're going to have to revert back to the pre-expansion limits in their businesses.
Just to be read in the record, that the 10 equal Ruddertown, Starboard Claw, Dewey Beach Country Club, Dewey Beer Company, Gary's, Mama Maria, Starboard Raw. A lot of letters. Hold on one second. Meds Cali Restaurant, and Starboard, as well as Woody's. So a significant amount of our footprint here in town. Any other comments that I mean, obviously, Fred, we're going to need you to give us some guidance on what we can or cannot do prior at the next meeting.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments before I move on to the next agenda item? Not seeing any. Number 10, discuss and possibly vote to approve the 2022 residential rental license application and safety certification affidavit, the 2022 commercial rental license application, the 2022 business license application. So I'll open to the floor for conversation. I assume that everyone's reviewed those.
I guess my only question is, do we really need to vote to approve these? I kind of thought they were an administrative task, and that we just kind of had influence as far as direction.
I agree.
You had yes.
I agree with that. For the record, I think that you can simply direct the town manager as a task to move forward with these application forms, or to make changes in accordance with your wishes.
Yeah, because I just want these guys to have the flexibility if they want to make changes to be able to change it without coming to us for, minor edits and things like that.
I'm fine with that also, unless there's any objection, we can move on. Not seeing anything? Okay. Review, discuss, and possibly vote to approve the budget for fiscal year 2023 draft budget. So might as well just get comfortable. This might be a long process. We've all had a chance to review the budget. I hope everyone's had a significant amount of time to go line by line. I know that there's been back and forth with Ms. Hall in terms of recommendations and or questions. I'll open up to the commissioners to come forth if there's anything in specific to the budget they would like to point out to the public and or to possibly amend. So I'm looking for hands on the commissioner level if there's anything that you'd like to discuss. Commissioner
I'll put
Persinger.
my hand up. Okay, good.
No, you're second.
I'm sorry, did you call on me first?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hopefully quickly here. I did make some comments on the first draft of the budget with respect to the revenue items, and I think generally I'm pretty comfortable with those. I saw some adjustments that at least made sense to me. I hope they made some sense to other commissioners as well. The one thing that I wanted to mention or suggest here is we back in October made the change to the dates for payment of business license fees. We moved the payment due date forward by 2 months for the commercial businesses and by a month and a half for residential licensing. And as a result of that, we're moving a substantial amount of money forward out of the traditional position of February and March into April. So we still will get some revenue, I believe, that will count in this fiscal year for these for the next fiscal year licenses, but it will be substantially reduced. And as a result of that, I think we can also expect the end of next year to be affected as well. I think with an April 30th payment date, you're going to have a lot fewer people who have an incentive to pay early before the end of the fiscal year. So if it's not paid before March 31, it wouldn't count toward the current fiscal year. So I would suggest that we reduce the license fees by about $20,000. I think that's a relatively conservative estimate to reflect that change in early payment behavior that we can expect. That will happen certainly this year and should happen at the end of next year as well. So that's my recommendation there.
All right, I think it's a good suggestion. Personally. Commercial business
$20,000
license reduced by 20,000. Okay, Commissioner Jasinski. I'm sorry, Commissioner Persinger, did you have any other comments?
I have kind of a general concern about the seasonal employment figures. I see some of the reasons for it, but it just feels a bit heavy to me. It just feels like, particularly on the parking ambassadors and dog ambassadors, that we've kind of quadrupled, I think, the number of working hours spent there. And I'm not sure that there's that much return financially for the town. There may be some good relationship aspects to that, but it feels a little heavy. And I also have, there were some changes that were sent around today, and it appeared that the number of hours for seasonal police were actually reduced. Maybe that was a mistake because they didn't change the total amount of wages that would be paid. There was some reduction in the lifeguards, but I had a question about that as well. I then sent that to the town manager, but I was a little confused by some of the changes that were made this afternoon to that seasonal analysis. So I'll stop there.
Okay, yeah, Commissioner Persinger, you and I had the same viewpoint on when I saw the 8,640 hours on the parking ambassadors. It was obviously higher than the last 2 years during COVID than what we had 1459 in 2020, but almost 50 to 70% higher what we had in 19 and 20 of 5,900 and 4,500. So, Bill, town manager, do you want to make? Can you comment on Gary's points of view?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So I want to start off by saying that Sheena, myself, and the mayor, to some aspects, has worked very hard to try to get the budget in as early as possible. And again, this is only my second year. When I came in a year ago, the budget was kind of already floating around. Sheena's done an excellent job this year to get it in, actually balanced somewhat for us. As you saw in my email that I sent out, me being here a year, I've looked at things, and I think we're going to make some changes, as I pointed out in my email, for the better. I think one of those things when I looked at was dog licensing revenue. We captured that in the morning very well last year. We went from $20,000 with the dog licensing. We doubled it last year to $40,000. And that was just having somebody in the morning doing the enforcement on the beach. This year we're proposing, maybe hiring somebody in our budget to do it in the afternoon, after 5 o'clock, after Captain Fritchman's folks get off. So I think that is money well spent in those hours to do the same thing that our person's doing in the morning. If you're down in the beach in the afternoon after the lifeguards go off, you'll see a great number of dogs down on the beach. Some of those may be the someone's from the morning, some of them may not. So I think that's money well spent in hiring that extra person to do that work. When we look at the parking ambassadors last year, and I know we've gone back and forth, and Sheena's done a good job explaining to the commissioners about, we only really had 3 people last year doing parking. 2 of those folks couldn't work, were limited on hours, and we only had 1 person that was working the full amount of hours. We had a couple other folks that came in, stayed for a couple weeks, and then left, came in for a couple weeks and left. This year, I'm not expecting that. We're going to be paying them more than we did last year. We're going to be paying them enough to hopefully get 10 full-time parking folks. The police are going to do the scheduling with those parking folks. Last year, we had a hard time getting anybody working past 9 o'clock at night. So we missed all that. Also, we are going to have those folks out in a shift during the day and a shift at night. We're hoping that this increases, the folks that are actually able to write violations for the parking. we may find that people are using more Park Mobile or the new T2 system when we get that out and running, or the kiosks. But for right now, based on last year, with only one person working full-time, two people working part-time, and the other folks coming in and out, I don't think last year's a really good judge on how many people we should hire. I think we are on target with 12 people for this year. I think 10 of those with parking, 2 of those as dog ambassadors, and that's where we should be with those numbers. I'm happy to answer any questions on those numbers for parking.
Commissioners, raise your hand if you'd like to make comments. Commissioner Jasinski.
Well, first of all, I definitely wanted to thank Sheena Hall for all of her work, not just getting the budget done, getting us a copy last month, but also being very, very responsive in a timely manner when we had questions and getting things back to us. I want to focus my comments on the seasonal aspects of it, and first to the town manager in terms of questions. So you mentioned being able to do not parking tickets, but dog ambassador tickets, strengthening that program to the afternoons. I know you've mentioned previously moving resource between the beach patrol for night patrols and the seasonal police to do that. And you also mentioned just now some being able to do more late night parking tickets. Are there any other problems that you're trying to solve with our seasonal staffing?
Yeah, so you saw an email from the public probably earlier today. I ended up calling that individual up, and there was a question about why is parking at 16 and the lifeguards are at 15. Really, it should be switched. And I was able to explain to that person that last year we had 53 people try out for lifeguarding. 53 people last year. And I would say out of those 53, 49 of them were ready to go. We only needed 19 last year. So we have plenty of people coming out for lifeguarding. We really do. For parking, we didn't have that. So that's the reason why parking needs to be paid a little bit more than lifeguarding. We need to get those resources in so we can get them trained and get them out there at night and find out who's paying for parking and who's not. So when also on the lifeguard numbers, whether it was Commissioner Persinger or Jasinski, we did talk to Captain Fritchman this morning. We did readjust the total number of hours, as you pointed out. I also took the lifeguards from doing a night patrol at night, moved those out from doing that. And we're going to have the summer officers actually out doing the night patrol instead of the lifeguards. And that brings me to the police officers. Last year we were paying them, the summer officers, we were paying them $14.25 an hour to start off. This year we're at $17. And I know that seems like a big jump, but we're competing against Bethany Beach and Rehoboth. Rehoboth's at $17, we're at $17. Bethany Beach is at $17.75. So we're still behind them paying these folks. But at the end of the day, it's hard to get young people to come out and be summer police officers. And it's hard to get good people that, when you think about it, what could happen to the town if we don't have our folks out there trying to get we're trying to get the best folks possible. And we're trying to train them up in a matter of 2.5 to 3 weeks to go out there and handle, sometimes 1,000 people, 1,000 drunk people in the town on a weekend, Memorial Day weekend, for example. And I know the chief can add some additional information. So I think when I'm asked about the salaries, I think we're on target with the salaries. The lifeguards are where they should be, starting out at $15 an hour. Parking should be starting out at 16 so we can get more people in. And for the police officers, we need to have those summer officers at the highest of those three groups to not only get the people in, but get good quality people in.
Okay. I appreciate the explanation on salaries, but just to make completely clear, I have no concerns whatsoever about the hourly rates. So I hope you didn't interpret my question to mean that I had any concern about the hourly rate for any of the positions. Where I was coming at this from was the problems you're trying to solve with the overall levels of seasonal staffing. And the original seasonal analysis spreadsheet that came out had a total of 48,000 seasonal total hours. And then one came out this afternoon, lowering that to 39,000 total hours. That's a huge jump kind of coming just before the meeting. So I'm trying to understand what all got pulled out between those two. And the other thing that I'm trying to understand, and Ms. Hall might be able to explain this, the total combined wages didn't change that much, but the total seasonal hours went down by 20%. So I'm really confused about what is the requested seasonal staffing level and expense.
Okay, Commissioner, it's in the Word document that had the breakdown of for each general ledger item. I had little charts in there that showed for seasonal police what had been paid in the past and what we were doing this year, and then how many we were estimating at being first year, second year, and third year. That is what for the parking and for the seasonal police that I based the salary on. We may have far fewer returners, far fewer veterans coming in. So the salary would be less. So that is what I put for the salary in that spreadsheet, the analysis spreadsheet. I took to the hours, I just took the wage by the number of people to get the number of hours. I know in the past, based on looking at the payroll, our seasonal police have been putting in 40 hours a week. Each of them. The lifeguards, 24 to 32, some only 8, but depending on their outside commitments.
Mm-hmm.
I had some cushion in the lifeguards just because I wanted to make sure that they were fully covered as far as making sure they could fully protect the beaches. I took that out. I took those 2,000 hours out before I sent it back to you. I took the cushion out.
Right.
And went strictly with what Todd had.
Okay. So let me kind of point to you. So if you go to the bottom of your seasonal analysis, in the original that we are working with up until this afternoon, it said 48,000 hours, and it's going to cost us $737,000. And then we got a revised one that says 39,000 hours, which is about 20% less, but still $709,000 in expense. And that's where I'm having trouble trying to understand the numbers I'm looking at.
Because instead of putting in the hours that I based the salary on, which is what was in that Word document, the eight first year officers working 18 weeks, 40 hours a week, and 6 or 8 at the second year working the same and 6 at the third year. That is what I got the salary on. And instead of just taking 40 times 18 times 20 and getting you those hours, I just strictly took the salary and divided it by the number of people. I'm sorry if this caused an issue. Hours have never been questioned before this year.
Well, so what I'm trying to get to, and the reason why I'm asking these questions is, up until 12 noon today or this afternoon, when I saw that the email came through, I saw a dramatic increase in the amount of staffing, and I'm not questioning the rate that anyone's being paid. I know we have to pay a rate to get good people and whatnot. So there's no issue there. What I was seeing was a dramatic increase in the level in terms of the amount of total hours that we have seasonal employees available to work across these different categories: beat patrol, seasonal police, parking ambassadors. And I get that some of the increase we have in terms of expense is going to the increased rates we're paying, which range from 10 to 15% more, depending on the job category. But there's also additional staffing level that's going along with that. And when this gets rolled up into our entire budget, in a single year, our budget's going up by 17%. That's a tremendous increase for a single year for a municipality. And it's especially tremendous when that doesn't even include significant infrastructure spending that's needed and or expenses for the new town hall. So my concern and where I'm coming from is I want to see us be able to pay these new wages to both the full-time staff as well as seasonal staff we pay. And I also support, from a town manager's perspective, his desire to change who does what. Beach Patrol doesn't do night patrols, other people do this. But from my perspective, I think a significant increase in seasonal staffing levels when the town operated pretty well this past summer isn't necessarily an urgent need. And I think that we have to allow ourselves room in the future to be able to do these critical infrastructure projects, to be able to have money so that we can build a new town hall and whatnot. So I'm kind of having trouble with the information provided to understand exactly what the total seasonal budget between these three categories should be. But my personal view is that it should reflect relatively the same amount of total staff hours between the different jobs, but at the higher rate that's being proposed. And I don't know if any of the other commissioners have any thoughts on that.
Go ahead, Commissioner Persinger.
Just quickly, I think the discrepancy that Commissioner Jasinski has pointed to in looking at the total seasonal coverage and the hours and the wages, the discrepancy is really in seasonal police. The first version that we had of this analysis showed that for budgeted for FY23, there would be 15,840 hours. The spreadsheet that we got later today, or rather earlier today, took that number of hours down to 11,241. But it didn't change the total amount of wages that were paid, but that was the same in both spreadsheets. So that really creates the discrepancy. I guess the question is, first of all, what's the correct number of hours? Is it 15,008 or is it 11,002?
So let's answer that first. Ms. Hall?
I would like the chief personally, he knows more about his guys. If he can help me, explain to me what I missed on his, did I screw up his hours? He knows his guys and I don't want to, I may have missed.
No, well, let me, so I understand, well, I have both spreadsheets up. I'm looking at both documents. And the issue is that Gary's right, the Commissioner Person's right. I mean, the total wage of seasonal police is 247,320, 247,320. It's the exact same number, but the hours have gone down. So logically, if either your hourly rate has gone way up or stayed at the same, even though you're cutting the lower hours, or that number should be about $70,000 less in terms of the overall spend.
Right.
So it's, I understand his point. It's both points from Commissioner Jasinski and Commissioner Persinger are good points. So Chief, do you want to?
Now I haven't seen the last spreadsheet that come out today. I haven't seen that one, but I was going to cover it under my comments. Where we're at right now, we're trying to go for 20 seasonal police officers. Currently, we have 9 applications in for the season so far. We're encouraging them to go ahead and apply, but I know we're still a little early yet, but it doesn't look like we're getting the amount of applicants that we normally get for this time of year pre-pandemic. So, I mean, I see. I understand exactly where the commissioners are as far as the budget there and the money versus the hours. But I believe what we've got so far, I'm seeing more brand new hires than the officers that worked in the past years, where they get a little bit higher salary because they're returning seasonal police. So I think we can work on those numbers between me and Sheena and give a better, do some more work and dive into those figures. But I think we're going to be more on the lower side than we are the high side, being we're going to have new staff versus seasonals that's been here 3 or 4 summers with us and making a higher salary, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Commissioner Gibbons, do you have any comments before? And we're not done with this comment. We're just gonna put this in the parking lot for a second.
Yeah, because if, I've been toggling back and forth between the two things, which was difficult to do with my computer. But if the total hours changes, and the total wages should change under seasonal police, and that is what takes care of most of the difference when we get to the total. So I just think perhaps there was a data entry error.
The hours were calculated two separate ways. That's what I'm saying. The hours amount was calculated two separate ways. One, the salary was based on the hours, and the other, the hours were based on the salary. So that's where the difference is. It was two separate calculating with, I went from hours to salary and then from salary to hours, and the formulas shouldn't have been done that way.
Commissioner, Town Manager, do you have comment?
I just, I wanted to try to answer part of Commissioner Jasinski. So our hours that we currently have now for seasonal police officers, you see they're 11,241 last year. They were 10,214. You know, because we're not doing the night patrol, we're going to bring 4 extra folks on board. Figuring they work about 500 hours for the summer. You know, you take those 4 officers, multiply times 5, that's an extra 2,000 hours. So that brings it up. And I know we're a little bit below that, but that's where we're getting some of those, the total number of hours with those extra officers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I just pulled out my calculator. On the revised spreadsheet, if you multiply 11,241 times 17, you end up getting a figure like 187, 190 or something like that, rather than $247,000. So that's part of the discrepancy. I want to ask a question to my fellow commissioners, because obviously we're not going to approve this tonight, given that we got to get some of this straightened out. But I want feedback from my fellow commissioners as well as from town manager from a policy perspective. When we go across all these individual things, because responsibilities are shifting in terms of who does what, whether the police do it or lifeguards do it, are you all of a mindset that we should not be having a significant increase in the number of total hours available when you add up all 3? Or are you thinking we should have a significant increase in the total hours available across all 3?
That's the town manager. Is that to the commissioners or to town manager, David?
To both.
Okay. Let's start with town manager. And
Yeah,
then
so I think the hours do need to go up, especially for parking. They need to go up. Given on the numbers that I told you last year, we only had 3 people working. This year, I'm hoping to have 10 on 2 shifts working this year. So we're definitely going to have some numbers increase there, and we're increasing the dog ambassador by 1. And it's really not, the dog ambassador really isn't doing dog enforcement, writing tickets. Really, we're making the money by them being out there selling our dog licenses and making sure everybody has a dog license.
Right.
So there's no doubt in my mind that we need to increase the number of people we have, especially for parking.
My response to this is that it looks like we are going to be having more people that can bring, we're spending more to have more people who can then bring in more funds. Because I know that parking was not enforced as the town manager would have liked over the summer, because they just didn't get to some parts of town. There weren't enough people. They had hurt knees and all these kinds of things. The dog ambassador has been fabulous. It's a little creepy in terms of that Chitty Chitty Bang Bang movie where they make the noises, the dogs come and they get them all away, but that's not what we do. Anyway, but I think that this is an expense that has a return.
Commissioner Persinger.
Well, with respect to the parking ambassadors and the dog ambassadors, I think if you look at the budget, you know, we're talking about quadrupling their hours, but I don't think the return is really showing in the budget, the financial return for having that many more hours devoted there. So, you know, I think that's, like I said this earlier, I think that's a little too heavy. With respect to seasonal police, it depends. The answer to Commissioner Jasinski's question really depends on what the right number of hours is here. You know, if it was the original number of 15,000, that's a 50% increase in the seasonal police hours. If it's only 11,241, that's a 10% increase. Big difference between the two. The 10% increase is probably quite reasonable. You know, I'm not sure we need 22 seasonal police. I think that's also a bit heavy, but you know, if it's only a 10% increase in the number of hours, it's probably okay.
And two of those, sir, are dispatchers. Two of them will be dispatchers.
No, understood. But you're talking about going from at least 16 to 20.
All right, so all right. So what I think needs to happen here is that we need Town Hall, Sheena, to look at that, really specifically looking at the seasonal hours and the seasonal numbers so that it makes sense. Because again, that change that came through today, it just doesn't make sense. So I think that's one of the things we just need to unpack before, and potentially a special meeting, because we will be required to have a special meeting prior to the next March meeting to review the budget if it cannot be approved tonight, because we have to have that done. Probably, I think Gary was before March 5th. I think from our conversation.
Second Saturday in second Saturday in March.
Yeah. So I'd love to get it approved, but I don't think we can tonight because of that question mark. But I'll throw that out to the commissioners. Just with one hold on, with Bill Zoper. So as I look, we have an agreement in terms of reducing the commercial license by $20,000 for this budget. So it's just one point in fact for Sheena Hall. The second thing that I would like to have done, from a commissioner's point of view, is with this, if this budget holds, this represents a significant change to our annual non-set-aside budget expense. And what we have done in the past is, as from what Commissioner Persing does, we've put funds into the rainy day fund to represent half of our budget, which is how we had the 1.8 million. What I was going to propose to the team was potentially increasing the set aside for the rainy day fund to match the budget expenditure that we have, and do so by increasing it from 5% to 30% on the transfer tax. So right now we take 5% of transfer tax, and that goes towards the rainy day fund to balance to have enough money in the rainy day fund. And you guys can take a look at it. If we put 70% of the, 30% of the 700,000 by the end of next fiscal year, we will have balanced the rainy day fund to its current budget. So that was the only suggestion that came to my mind. So if that was confusing, let me know and I'll redo it. Or does that make sense? Gary?
Well, I guess I'm just not sure we need to do that. I believe we should continue to contribute something to the rainy day fund, but my anticipation was that we would fund the requirements for the rainy day fund from the surplus from FY 2020.
That's fine. We could do it either way. It's either we're taking it from the transfer tax or that we're funding it from the surplus from the year. So if you want to do it that way, that's fine. But if that's the case, then we would remove the surplus. The rate wasn't going towards the rainy day fund in the current budget. Correct? Because right now we have 35,000 going into the budget set aside for the rainy day fund that equals the amount, the 5% of the transfer tax.
Right.
If we go to fund it out of the surplus, then we no longer need that line item from the set aside account.
Well, I would disagree with that, only to the fact if we have surplus where we can fully fund the rainy day account based on the final approved budget, less set aside amounts, then we could still continue to fund some money, put some money into the rainy day fund, anticipating that we'll have an increase in the budget next year. You know, for every $100,000 goes up, you need another $50,000 in the rainy day fund.
That's fine. Then I will remove that suggestion just to keep it as is. So the only thing that we have to unpack right now is the change to the seasonal part, the seasonal employees as part of the budget. Is that a true statement from the commissioners' perspective? I just want to make sure we have everything on the table in regards to budget so that we can be more efficient in our process.
So what I'd like to see is if we're going to be upping the dog ambassadors and parking enforcement portions of things based on anticipated revenue, I want to see what the ratio is of additional staff to what's the expected revenue. Because right now the expected revenue shows is flat, even with the additional staff. So I want to see if we're going to have all this other staff, what we're going to get from it.
Okay.
May I ask one question for when I am doing this, getting you this information? How do I project this based on, since when the people return, they have different rates. Our lifeguards have different rates, you know, whether they're 1 year, 6 years, whether they're a second-year lieutenant or a fifth-year lieutenant, whether our seasonal officers are first year or third year. We're going to have a difference of rate based on any number of combinations.
I think I heard it differently. I think what Commissioner Jasinski said is that if we're going to have an increase in parking ambassadors, the assumption is that we'd have increase in parking revenue, parking fine revenue. Did I hear you wrong, Commissioner Jasinski?
No, that's what I was saying. That and the dog ambassadors. Yeah.
Right. You got more people on the street, you're going to have an increase in revenue. So that's just part of the analysis. Bill, did you have anything that you wanted to say? Soper, town manager.
I think it's tough to try to figure out how much. So, for example, an extra dog ambassador at night. I mean, last year we doubled it from 20,000 to 40,000 selling these licenses. I mean, would you want us to say, okay, we made 20,000 last year. We're going to add an extra ambassador at night to do dogs, so it should be, you know, between 12 and 20,000. Is that what you're looking for?
I'm not going to give you the number, but what I'm really looking for is if you're confident that the nighttime dog ambassador is going to generate additional revenue, I need you to put a stake in the ground with it's going to cost us X, and I feel comfortable that we'll at least get Y revenue out of it, you know, and you might end up being wrong, and that happens sometimes, but I need you to make a projection on that. And the same thing for the additional parking staff. I mean, we're quadrupling the overall staff in this department based on the current proposed number of hours. If we're quadrupling staff, I need to understand what kind of revenue we're getting out of that.
Understand. I'm just trying to understand as the town manager to have parking ambassadors and to enforce parking throughout the town from 10 in the morning until 1 in the morning. We need to have a staff. And, you know, if everybody's doing Park Mobile and doing the kiosks, we'll find out this year. Maybe 10 people is too many. But we won't know that until we actually get out there and start doing the enforcement, because last year we only had 3 and 2 of them were only working part-time.
Okay.
But I would make the point, I don't think we missed our budget projection by all that much, even with just 3 people. I think probably $25,000 perhaps. I don't have the figures in front of me, but I think it's that order of magnitude.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, was there anything else in the budget from the commissioners that?
Yeah, I think, so that's the, yeah. So let's get this to a wrap. Obviously we're not going to vote on this because we have a question mark on the seasonal side. The only change we have on the budget right now is the $20,000 decrease in the commercial licenses. And we're going to come to some conclusion. We're going to have an analysis that looks at in a little bit in depth of the seasonal change that we have, the beach patrol seasonal and the parking. If that's okay with everyone, but what I'd like to get on the books is our next meeting that we'll have to post an agenda for the budget. From that point, today's the 18th. We couldn't have a meeting before the 28th on that Monday of February, but it has to be done before March 5th. So we only have that week, the 28th to the 4th to meet.
Is it? I have to check the charter, but I thought it was the second Saturday in March.
It is.
Oh, I thought it was the first. I'm sorry. Okay. So between the 28th and the 11th, we would need to find another date. And I think we can come to I think if this is the only area that we need to review, it shouldn't take that long to get through. So
we'll get it done.
Can I have a suggestion as to when you guys would like to meet again to review the budget?
I can do both March 3rd and March 4th. We've been meeting on Fridays. Just throwing both of those out.
So how about March 4th for the budget review?
Can hear. Yeah, I can make that work.
I think that looks fine for me.
Are we going to try 4 o'clock in the afternoon again?
Yes.
That's Good Friday or not?
No, the 15th is Good Friday. The 15th is Good Friday.
In April, I think.
Yes. Correct.
All right.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, March 4th. Okay, gotcha. All right.
It's a military comment, a military day, March 4th. All right, so Ashley, can you just remind me to post the agenda that we're going to have, to post that we're going to have a budget meeting, special budget meeting of the commissioners on March 4th at 4 o'clock.
Yep, no problem. That just has to be posted by next Friday.
Okay. All right, we're good to move on to the next topic. If I remember correctly, that's a review of the town financial statements.
Yep, thanks, Mayor. So for January, revenues expected is where we're expected was 114,908. Revenue received was actually 234,581. The difference is above expected 119,673. A lot of that due to the transfer tax and accommodation tax. Any questions on that? Okay. Expenses expected was 222,194. Actual expenses was 204,194. Difference below expected of $18,000. Any questions on that?
No.
Year to difference expected 290,263. Actual year to difference is 1,945,817. Just some notes also, revenue continues to be higher than expected, led by transfer tax and accommodation tax. And those numbers, transfer tax is 1,584,763. Accommodation tax is 747,884. Lodging tax at 114,152. And building permits at 654,421. Set asides continue to be above expected due to increased revenue. Streets and infrastructure, 246,914. Capital improvement has received 97,293, and rainy day fund has received 79,238. We're 1,945,817 in the positive so far. Any questions?
Commissioners, do you have any questions on the financial performance for the month of January and for the year to date? Commissioner Persinger.
This is not a question. This is a request. I would like for the town manager to bring to us for the March meeting, if at all possible, a projection for what our year end is going to look like in terms of budget surplus. And that means taking out any other funds that we may have received, particularly the ARPA funds, because I think those have restrictions on them. But how much money are we going to have at the end of the year that we could allocate to high priority needs like infrastructure and capital improvements? I would hope that we could have that at the next meeting and have a discussion about that and begin to think about what we think our priorities really should be. Should it be more heavily on capital improvements or on the infrastructure side?
Okay, thanks.
Good comment. And yeah, town manager, with that, I do believe we need to start to look at from a more detailed approach to our future capital spending. We obviously know about the town hall that we'll have over the next year or two, and what that expenditure will be. But we do need to map out so that we're not living year to year, that we can have a 3-5 year plan to look out.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on the financial statements? Not seeing any. Move on to the next. Number 13, discuss and possibly vote to approve the language in the request RFP for solid waste recyclable and bulk waste collection. So I'll open up to the commissioners. Obviously, this is an RFP for who's going to be servicing us in town. I assume that we've read through the RFP. Are there any questions, comments, or changes? Commissioner Persinger.
Just a question. How does this compare to the RFP that we use for the current vendor?
It is actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley, it's the exact same RFP with one change. And we did this midsummer this year when I found our trash cans between Salisbury and Reed Street on Route 1 were just overflowing. So during the middle of the summer, I added an extra garbage pickup for those trash cans along the busiest parts of the town. We added that to this year's RFP, or to this RFP.
Okay. And the response is due when?
March.
Oh, March 18th.
Yeah.
That's pretty tight, it seems to me. And I'm wondering how many bids do you think you'd actually be able to get? I don't know. I think there's been some consolidation in the trash vendors, but I don't know the extent to which that may affect this.
From what I understand, and Jim can correct me, I think last time we only had one bid on this. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes, that is correct. And that was re-advertising it.
Okay.
Well, we still need to go through the RFP process. Is there any changes or amendments to the RFP on the commissioners? Commissioner Jasinski.
So I guess I have a comment and kind of a question. So the comment is, we've always had a little bit of this kind of problem, and it always percolates up at all times of year, but especially kind of in the off season of people who decide not to pay for trash collection and then decide to help themselves to our municipal trash collection or trash in the street, the garbage cans on the corner. That's always been a problem that kind of rears its head. And our neighboring towns, rather than taking the approach of having a single vendor and allowing each person to sign up, which they're not legally required to do, it's just the only vendor who can provide the service. They basically do a single contract and then rebill it out to the residents and make all the residents pay for their garbage collection. Some of them allow them to do a seasonal only. Some of them make them do it all year. They generally offer them both options. But basically, if you're residential, you kind of have to do it, and it's billed back to you. And that kind of stops the problem of people kind of rudely feeding off the neighborhood cans, as well as the trash that happens from it. And the trash does happen from it, because we all know that people do that, and then someone has to go and pick it, clean it up, whether it's a town employee or a neighbor. And so I thought about this, and also when I looked at the neighboring towns who do the centralized billing, they're able actually to save their people some money, because the garbage companies know that if it's kind of optional, they don't necessarily get every home, and then they have the billing expense and the customer service expense. So it ends up saving some money. So my thought process was that we don't necessarily change this, but we offer in the RFP the option for the vendors to contract for all residential properties in town, and to give us a single bill to the town rate for all residential properties in town, so that we can properly evaluate what's the financial impact of this, what are the benefits and detriments to doing it that way, and we can make a decision of whether we want to continue the individual billing, or whether we want to basically say we're going to have a single contract and we're going to rebill residents for trash service.
Commissioner Jasinski, are you proposing that we invoice each individual town or each individual resident for their trash?
It would work the same way as the beach tax does. You get instead of getting just a beach tax invoice, you get a beach tax plus what your annual garbage service costs. It's the same type of concept. It's what Rehoboth does. It's what Bethany does. South Bethany. Most of the towns do it that way. They have a specific line item charge that they add to the municipal tax bill.
Commissioner Gibbons or Commissioner Persinger, comment? If you have a comment.
I do not have any comment. I think it's worth looking at, certainly. There could be, if you're talking about a single flat rate for everybody, there's still going to be some inequities in that and some people complaining. But it's worth looking at, I think.
May I propose also, town manager, that from when this RFP goes out, to determine if the trash company, whatever trash company, will be providing their answer. So we're going to get a flat rate proposals to the way we've traditionally done, or one rate that the town would end up paying and then get reimbursed for potentially. But if there's also a way of audit in the sense of who in the town of Dewey Beach, based upon the list of residency, has not signed up for trash. Because that may get us to the same path. Does that make sense?
It does. How do we enforce that though? I'm just trying to.
Well, I'm sorry, but I guess I look at it going, there's two ways of going here to make sure that there's compliance in terms of everybody paying for their trash. It's either we get a one whole number from the trash company, and then we bill out and we know what hasn't paid, or we provide the trash company a list of all of the addresses in town that they would be servicing, and they can basically verify who's not on that list or what addresses they're not picking up from. I don't know if it's a possibility, but I understand that we have an issue with the town residents using public cans versus paying for it. But I'm also fearful of an additional administrative process. But I understand what Commissioner Jasinski is saying. We're already invoicing for the beach, just another line item. But that's an expenditure we don't have, or it's an outlay of cash that we don't have. Go ahead.
Don't we do that? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner.
My intent here is really for us just to get the information about what it would cost and whether it makes sense to seriously pursue it. I don't have a firm opinion until I see a number from a trash company of why they'd want to do it. I will tell you this: I think that there are probably more trash companies who are interested in a single contract than individually contracting with everybody on a special basis.
That's true.
All right. So the ask is for you to amend the RFP for a single contract to the town of Dewey Beach, in addition to the per residency rates. Is that correct?
That's my ask, yes.
Yes. Sorry. I'm looking right at you. I don't know why you're not replying. All right. So
I do have one comment on that.
Yes.
I was pretty involved with getting the contract established when we went to a townwide residential trash pickup. This would only be for residential. That's all we've required in the past. So the commercial we have never touched base with. So is the intent to do it for residential and commercial, or just residential?
Just residential.
Just residential.
Okay. And then the follow-up is, I think it's going to be an administrative problem at some point for the administrative staff. And I bring that up because right now we don't even have everybody paying for the beach tax. So we have to go after that as well. So the burden will be on the town, quite frankly. And so I just want that, and Ashley can verify that at the end of the year, we always have to go after people to pay the property, the beach tax. So there's a proportionate number that people don't do that. So we'll be having to chase that as well as the trash pickup. And believe me, I can tell you, we're going to run into opposition on this from the public, because a lot of the public that I've dealt with are not happy with having the town force them into a trash service, even though they do it. So any changes, we'll have to explain it for the rationale for it. And I don't think it's going to be any cheaper, to be honest with you. I think the rates are going to go up substantially.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
One last, and the reason why we only got one bid last time was a lot of the trash services did not want to come into Dewey Beach during the summer season. They made that pretty clear.
Okay.
That's it.
So again, this is just to have the RFP. We're going to amend the RFP. So can I have a motion to approve the RFP for solid waste, recyclable, bulk waste collection with the addition of a single town fee for the summer?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that motion passes. Actually, if you need any help in terms of the wording or what we require, just let me know.
Thank you. And
all right.
your April meeting is how I put the deadline on that. So it'll be advertised in the 225 and 3/4 newspapers with a deadline of 3/18, and that way you can bring it back for your April meeting because the contract has to be effective the following month.
Okay, thank you. Number 14, town manager comments.
Yeah, real quick. It's been 1 year. Year's going by really quick. I can't say enough good things about the staff here. Just working really well, and I appreciate everybody's support from the commissioner side. Before we start with this PowerPoint, real quick, Jim Dedes and I have met with at least one of the architects. We got the next 2 architects lined up next Thursday and the following Thursday. Just to touch base on some basic things on what we're looking for. And just so you know, I sent a picture of the lifeguard station. Not that we want the new town hall police station to look like that, but just to give them some inspiration and what the vibe is here in Dewey, because you've got all sorts of different buildings in Dewey, but I think the lifeguard station really is kind of like at the heart of what we are like in Dewey Beach. So I just say that. My plan is with Jim is that we meet with all 3 different architect firms. They give us their initial kind of design and plans. We look at those. We bring those in front of the commissioners. The commissioners have an opportunity to look at them, ask questions from the 3 different firms. The commissioners pick a firm, and then we go together with a working group, and we dive in on actually what we want to do with the town hall. Any questions on that?
No. What's your overall timing when you think that'll happen?
So we're looking at, what do we say, Jim, by the April 15th or the April meeting and May latest?
That's what I thought would be reasonable, and that would give them ample time to do a presentation.
Good.
Any other questions?
No.
So hey, real quick, I just want to kind of show you what we've been doing in Dewey Beach. If you could go ahead, Kate. Thanks for putting these together. We've been doing a lot of different things. Of course, the lifeguards have their tryouts you can see there that are coming up. Last year, like I said, we had over 50 people show up for tryouts. Next, Kate. So here we go, snow removal. Don and Barry did an outstanding job with snow removal this year and actually plowing all the way down to Rehoboth Beach to make sure emergency equipment could get through to us. Next slide, please. There's what the roads look like in the morning of Saturday with those guys plowing. That's going down Bayard Avenue. Next slide, please. You see these sticks that we had put up to try to help the plows from hitting our curbs. Well, they hit the curbs anyway. I'm talking to the state about getting them repaired. That's what they look like. Next slide, please. This is the new fence. We've gotten a lot of comments about this. To me, most of them have been positive. I had heard some people say, you know, that it's going to cause people to do some things out there. But hey, if we've got some people that want to do some stupid things out there where it's going to be hard to stop that, and they may end up being arrested for it. Next slide. So as I talked about earlier about the signs, we're doing really good on the signs. Next slide. We are having an issue with things like this left when work is being done. Next slide, please. Things like this out around trash. Next slide, please. And things like this. So I'm working hard with Dawn Hicks, our building official, and with Jim to try to come up with an ordinance. We don't have an ordinance that really fits this. So we're going to be coming to you in the next couple of months, working with Fred, to have an ordinance where we can address some of these issues. Right now, we're addressing them by calling the homeowner and asking them to remove this stuff, calling the homeowner, asking them when they're going to fix this. The other thing is, you know, that takes time away from Dawn, who's out meeting with different project folks that are building things, whether it's, you know, something down at Bay Resort or somewhere else in the town. It takes a lot of time away when we have to go out and have folks address these. But we are going to look at an ordinance with fines to start addressing these issues here in town. Next slide, please. Here we are. We're ahead of schedule this year. We're putting the mats out, and you see Don and Barry there doing parts of the boardwalk. Next slide, please. That's what the finished product looked like. They're doing a fabulous job, and we're probably 2 months ahead where we were last year putting these out. Next slide, please. There they are, loading the stuff up. Next slide. Installing them up on the dune line. Next slide. And making some improvements down on some of the streets where we had some flooding. Next slide. That's what the finished product looks like. And final slide. That's what a finished product looks at the Bellevue and Bayard Avenue. So we've got multiple projects going on around town, and without the hard work by Don and Barry, none of this would get done. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Town Manager, Mr. Zolper. Any questions for the Town Manager from the Commissioners? None.
No,
Seeing
everything's
Police
great.
Chief Sam Ackert.
Thanks, Mayor. As I said earlier, we've been invited to 3 different job fairs to try and recruit more seasonal police officers. One's at Sussex Tap. The second one will be the Chamber of Commerce is hosting a job fair we've been invited to. And the third one will be up at Hudson Field during a first responders day up there. The only problem with that one is it's getting down to when we need to have our employees hired. But that is, the third event. Also, this past week, I met with the Sussex County paramedics. There was 4 of them that come down. They met with me. They are interested in the back, I guess you would call it the apartment building of where code enforcement is currently located at. They brought their logistics people with them. They have secured funding for a medic unit to be stationed in the Dewey area during this upcoming summer season. So, it's going to benefit everybody in Dewey Beach, police, residents, visitors. You're going to have an advanced life support system able to be in town. We're still working out the details, but the county will be coming back and letting me know at one point they're going to need an agreement with the town that you guys are going to let them use that building. But it's looking pretty promising that we're going to have a paramedic committed to Dewey Beach during the summertime this year. I've just in talking to them, they work 12-hour shifts. So that's how long you'll have coverage. Your busy holiday weekends and your holidays, you could have them longer. Still working out the details on that, but they're real excited and they really are looking forward on working with a partnership with a town to have a medic unit stationed there. And I made it very clear to them after talking to Bill that there's no long-term commitment we're going to make with them as far as how long that building's going to be there. If the commissioners, decide to move forward with a new town hall and building, they know that that's a site is going to be demolished and that building will no longer be there. But while it's sitting vacant, what a better use of that to have an actual paramedic crew stationed in town. So, sorry about the beginning of the meeting. Looks like I'm going to have a laptop somewhere in our budget to get repaired because it went up. I've got a blue screen on it. But I did want to make one comment about the outdoor seating. And I heard part of what the mayor was saying. But from the police department's perspective, we were very leery how all this was going to work and if it was going to create problems for us. But when you folks go to make your decision on what you want to do there, we did not see an increase of complaints, noise, or problems caused by outdoor seating the way they had it set up during the pandemic. And I did want to bring that to your attention because we were kind of holding our breath there for a while. We didn't know how it was going to work, but it never did put an extra workload on the police department.
Thank you, Chief.
Uh-huh.
All right. Item number 16, Commissioner comments. Commissioner Gibbings.
We're not going to have Paul call in.
No. It's been a peaceful meeting.
Excuse me. I appreciate the town manager getting us up to speed on everything that's gone on over the past year. I came in midway through his first year, and just to see that much change is quite lovely. And Chief, I can't tell you how excited I am about having a medic in town. That's fabulous.
Commissioner Jasinski.
No comments.
Commissioner Persinger.
No comments.
And for the final, for some comments from me, the town, Bill, just everything you've been doing, improving the communication, working on, big issues, small issues. it's been great. It really has been great. So, continue the work. We do have a review just for the other commissioners, 1 year review of our town managers coming up formally. I would like to the work that your maintenance guys have done, especially down at the end of Bellevue, is just incredible on how that looks and all the pylons. And it'd be nice to see what it would cost for us to do that at the end of every street in terms of the organization that you put in there. The last item that I had here that I just wanted to, something relatively neat in terms of different, something came out today from NASA, and that there's actually going to be a rocket launch at 12:39 tomorrow in Virginia. And they had put and I believe Kate put it on our website, but they put it as the Delaware beaches. So there's a great place to go and watch this rocket launch tomorrow afternoon. And we'll be able to see it. So just something different for all of us. That's all I have from a commissioner comment perspective. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move that we adjourn the meeting, please, sir.
Second.
Second.
And it's been seconded by Commissioner Persinger. All in favor, say